This episode is sponsored by the Bridge to Recovery, a nonprofit program on 115 acres near Bowling Green, Kentucky, a tranquil place where they've been changing lives for over 40 years. Their people improve their quality of life by acknowledging past emotional wounds and healing from all forms of trauma. The CEO, Paul Hamlin, has been a friend of mine for 20 years. Call him directly at 858-945-7848. That's 858-945-7848. Or you can learn more about the Bridge to Recovery by clicking the link in the show notes or visiting thebridgetorecovery.com. Thank you for listening to The Path to Authenticity. My name's Tom Gentry. I think of this show as the opposite of small talk. You'll hear real conversations with real people who know who they are. We talk about what makes them who they are, how they became who they are, and how we might become truer expressions of who we are.
This is Lucia Capacchione, and this is The Path to Authenticity.
Happy New Year. I'm Tom Gentry. Thanks for listening. So 2019's been a pretty great year for me and for this show. It's remarkable when I think back that, this time last year, this show was in large part still just an idea, and now this is the 40th episode that I'm wrapping up right now to come out on December 30th, 2019. And I just thought there would be no better way to wrap up the year than to have Lucia Capacchione back on. She was the show's first guest. She's featured in episodes 1 and 5. And Lucia is all about helping people tap into their true heart's desire. And being the new year, so many of us think about starting anew. And this is Lucia's expertise. She wrote a book called Visioning, which was released in the year 2000. And the subtitle's 10 Steps to Designing the Life of Your Dreams. So I thought it'd be a great way to end 2019 and begin 2020 to have Lucia come on and talk about how we can create a vision for our lives in 2020 and what that looks like, and just share her insight and her experience with that. So I want to thank all of you for listening. I feel like it's going to be a great year coming up. The next episode, I have a guest coming on kind of in the same vein, Olga Rocha, and her whole thing is helping us find where we belong in our work lives. So I hope you enjoy it. Take a listen. I hope you had a great 2019, and I wish you the best in 2020. Here you go. Lucia Capacchione.
Just the product of some bad seeds. Just some guys.
Lucia, thank you so much for coming back.
Well, it's my pleasure, Tom. Love sharing this with you and your audience.
Yeah, and I guess I should say Happy New Year.
Thank you.
So, we've been talking a little bit, and I wanted to have you come back on the show so that we could talk about visioning. What I feel like what I really want from this podcast is to help people who want to have better lives.
Yeah.
And for me, I really believe a lot of that is just a matter of, are we doing what we really want to be doing with our lives?
Yeah.
And so I thought a good way to start the year would be with you to talk about how listeners can create a vision for their lives going into this next year. Because, culturally, we seem to be so good at talking about what we're not going to do this year with the New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, it's true.
we really approach it from a negative frame of mind. So I just thought it would be really great for us to talk about what it is we want to do. And
exactly. Well, as you know from my book, Visioning, 10 Steps to Designing the Life of Your Dreams, I believe that it all starts with going deep into the self and asking the question, what is my true heart's desire? And when I do workshops and work with private clients, that's the first thing I do. I ask them to find a symbol of their creative self, because what I want to get across to them is that your life is really a design project. You can either live by default or you can live by design. And you can let life happen to you and feel like a victim and you're being thrown around in the wind and all that stuff, or you can go inside and really find out what is your true heart's desire, and then let that create the path that you're going to take. And of course, as you know, I do that through, first of all, collage work. But I think that question of what is my true heart's desire is the key. Without that, we're rudderless, and we're just kind of floating out there in the sea with winds and weather and all kinds of external stuff, just moving us around.
Yeah, well, and, just conventional wisdom in our culture, I think, especially around work. Well, work, relationships, you name it. We have all these social constructs that if we aren't intentional, we just, I'm going to have this job because that's what you do. Instead of actually doing what we want. I was just having a conversation with a client of mine earlier today who's, he's at this place in life where it's an ideal time for him to decide what he wants to do with his life. He's got time to think about it. He's got time to plan, but he doesn't know what his true heart's desire is. So I'm interested in the symbol of the creative self that you talked about. What are some examples of those that you've seen?
Well, it's been fascinating in my workshops and client work, and also in my own collages. I've seen an amazing array and variety of symbols for the creative self. Anything from a tree or a flower, something in nature, or a picture of a child painting or playing. I've seen pictures of famous people who were, Einstein, Da Vinci, famous people who are pretty much acknowledged as geniuses. People in films, theater. I've seen a lot of famous movie stars and theatrical stars as a focus for that creative self. And the reason I make a point of this, because of course we do collage work with the vision boards, is that it's important to acknowledge that we have this innate ability to create. And we can apply that to our lives, which is how I got into this work in the first place, because I was originally, as you know, an artist and graphic designer and toy designer and so on and so forth. And when I got into the field of art therapy, I realized that people were living by default. They weren't really designing their lives. And because I had been raised and worked professionally as a designer, I really took seriously the fact that we all have a creative self. And you can call it your soul or whatever you want to call it. But it's our ability to create what it is we're really moved to create. And it doesn't mean you're an artist professionally. It just means that we've all got that ability. And I wanted to see my clients apply it to their lives. That's really how I started this.
Well, it's funny because as I listen to you, I'm thinking about how, we already are really applying it to our lives, and in a lot of ways, it's whether or not we're willing to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Because if
you mentioned about what I'm not going to do next year.
Right.
Well, that to me is a negative application of creativity, because when you focus on what you don't want, then you'll create that. We create what we focus on.
Right.
And so if we're focused on worries, if we're focused on fear, anxiety, and negativity, and pictures of negative outcomes, then that's what we're going to manifest. So to me, and I notice that with my clients, once they stop doing that, after I do quite a bit of work with them in my inner child work method and inner family work, they'd clean up a lot of those old negative thought patterns. But then I noticed that they didn't know how to use creativity to form positive images. And so it was much easier for them to do it with collage using magazine photographs. And that's how I trained them to start creating positive pictures in their minds.
What do you think it is about the visual aspect of this that just works a little bit better, Lucia?
Well, I do notice, and I've heard this from many clients who have tried visualization. The difference is that artists and designers who are professionals at manifesting and turning thoughts into things, that's what that's what I did for many years. Those of us who did that were trained to make it physical right away. So let me tell you, designers and architects do not sit around visualizing very long. As soon as they get a thought about a building, clothing, piece of furniture, they will immediately sketch it out or make a model or a prototype or a blueprint or a diagram. They're going to turn it into something physical. As rough as that might be, it's still manifesting it in the physical world immediately. And when I was a consultant at Walt Disney Imagineering, the designers and builders of the theme parks, I watched that process. In fact, I wrote the visioning book after being able to sit as an outsider, because I wasn't designing there. I was a management trainer. And I could sit on the outside and watch that process. And I noticed that that's what they did. The minute they got an idea, they drew it. They did a model, a prototype, something physical. And so I realized, well, we can apply that to life design. Make it physical. So, of course, magazine photographs are very close to physical reality. They're not symbolic. They're portraits. They're portrayals of physical places and people having certain experiences and showing emotion and states of being. So if you want to create your physical life in 3 dimensions, to me, it makes much more sense to go right to the physical and manifest a blueprint, so to speak, in a collage. And start with that.
So,
make sense?
It does. It does make sense. So when you're directing someone, let's say, I don't know if that's the right verb or not, but to begin this process, and let's say they're skimming through magazines, what are you telling them to look for?
Well, I use the mantra, grab what grabs you, because they've already written down what I call a focus phrase as the answer to the question that I ask, what is your heart's desire at this time in your life? And I ask them to write a focus phrase with their non-dominant hand. That's the hand that didn't go to school, didn't learn to read and write, and it really taps right into the right brain and into the heart, very directly. And it's the hand of the inner child. It's the hand of our playful self, our spontaneous self. So that hand usually writes the truth in very few words very fast. And it's interesting to see how quickly, and a lot of people, when they write the focus phrase down, in a workshop, they'll say, this isn't at all what I thought I was going to do here today. This focus phrase, I had something in mind before I walked in here. This focus phrase has nothing to do with what I thought I was going to make a collage about. And I go, you're on the right track.
Well, the focus phrase is...
Your original thought probably came from your left brain logical side about what was practical and doable and blah, blah, blah. This hand is going to tell you the truth, and that's what I trust.
And it's instinctive.
Yeah, yeah. So when they use the focus phrase and they start getting photos then out of the magazines and images and words, I tell them, grab what grabs you. And don't think about whether it's feasible or practical or whether you can afford it or blah, blah, blah. Just grab it if it grabs you. It's like window shopping. This isn't costing you anything. You know, these magazines are old magazines, and all you have to do is go shopping through those pages and grab what grabs you. Not that everything's going to go in the collage, because there isn't room on that page for probably all the images and words you're going to choose, but just, you know, grab what grabs you. And so that's like the brainstorming phase of the creative process. No limits, just, you know, grab it all. But grab it all if it illustrates your focus phrase. That's the hook.
So what's an example of a focus phrase?
Well, I just recently reviewed my collage for last year. And it's very interesting because I want to mention another benefit that comes out of this. In the collage, I did 4 panels that were 18 by 24 inches each, and I put them all on the wall of my studio after I was through with them. And it's interesting to me looking back that the first panel that I did had something, it had a phrase that said, get brighter eyes in a blink. And I didn't know why I put the words there. It just felt right. And I have them under a picture of Helen Mirren's face. And then along the side, there's another phrase that I got in the magazine. It said, love who you see. And I kind of interpreted it as, love my own image in the mirror, whatever, self-love kind of thing. But actually, before summer, this is in the spring, I got diagnosed with cataracts. And I had cataract surgery. Now, when I did that collage, I had no clue about cataracts. I really did not. And I went for my regular, eye checkup with my optometrist, and she said, I think it was like, I don't know, I did the collage in January, and I think this must have been, like maybe February or March. And she said,
well, I know we talked in May or April, and you had just had the surgery.
I was having the surgery.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So the reason I'm mentioning this to you is the key to this collage work is to just, as I said, grab what grabs you and don't question it. Don't question it. And I could tell you 100 stories like this of collages I've done over the years that were absolutely premonitions of what was going to happen that year that I could never have known rationally. There was no way. The same thing with the house. I'm living in a house that happened that way. I did a collage in the summer of 1992. And I can't tell you why I did it in the summer, because usually I do them in January. But for some reason, I did a collage in August of 1992. And by May of 1993, I was moving into the house that I pictured in the collage. It was a 3-panel collage. And let me tell you, when I did the collage, my critic, the whole time was in the background telling me, this is really crazy, this is stupid, you can't move. Your father's got cancer, you're an only child, you can't leave L.A. This house that you're picturing here is, probably in Cambria, which is 250 miles north of L.A. where I was living, and you can't do it. You can't afford it. Oh, and you've got all this work at Disney. Why would you want to leave L.A.? It's the critic. It would just come in and was blasting away in the background. And fortunately, I've done this work for years, and I know when the critic's talking, and I just basically, in my own mind, said, would you please shut up now? I have something I'm doing here.
So
I'll talk to you later.
Yeah. So while you're talking about your house, Lucia, why don't you tell the audience about your house?
Well, my house is facing a beautiful woods in Cambria, California, at the south end of the Big Sur coast. And I'm sitting in my studio, and it looks just like the studio in the collage.
Mm-hmm.
And the view is just like the one in the collage of pine trees. And if I went closer to the window, I could see the background.
Mm-hmm.
And this studio has a Gothic ceiling, just like the one in the collage. The dining room has French doors, just like the ones in the collage. And it even has a skylight, just like the ones in the collage. And the man who had to replace those skylights a number of years ago said, I showed him the collage, and he said, this is about 1,000,000 shot that you would find a house that has this same skylight treatment, because these are not skylights, these are sliding glass doors, and they've been made into skylights.
Oh my God.
And that's the way the one in your picture there is made.
Wow. So tell the listeners where they might see your house.
Where they might what?
Where they might see it.
Well, the pictures of the house are actually in the book, in the last chapter of Visioning. And I show some panels from the collage, and I also have photographs of the house.
Well, now, maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought I'd been told that your house was in a movie.
It was in the movie Arachnophobia. Yeah.
That's what I was
John Goodman killed a spider on the front porch.
So when would that movie would have come out? Probably just a few years before.
Before I bought the house, yeah. I was not living here when the movie was made. And it's really funny, when I moved here, all of my friends would call if it was the movie that they'd all call me and say, quick, turn on the TV, your house is on there. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, in fact, in Cambria, people refer to my house as the Arachnophobia house.
Yeah. So, your house is famous.
I bring this up. It may sound far afield, but I bring this up because the work that I do with the visioning is very different from what used to be called treasure mapping for many reasons. One of them is I'm coming at it as a designer, not as a metaphysician. So I don't teach visualization. I teach actual, design with physical things, okay, manifesting right away. But the other thing that I have discovered is that when you get into the designer groove, you tap into what some people call the knowing field, the morphogenetic field, whatever you want to call it, of unlimited knowledge and understanding. And you start putting in these collages things that are so specific and so premonitional. They have nothing to do with the left brain logical mind. They come through the right brain and through the body and through physical reality. And so the artist takes over when we do these collages, if we're coming to it with a heart's desire mantra. Now, what is the heart's desire? To me, it's not about doing collages of things. It's about illustrating a state of being that you want. That's what anybody ever wants.
Mm-hmm.
And Madison Avenue knows this. They sell us things because what they're really picturing is a lifestyle or a state of being.
Right.
And so we look at these people smiling and happy driving this car, and we think we're going to be smiling and happy if we buy that car. They're not selling the car. They're selling the experience.
Right.
And so we have to take that Madison Avenue attitude and apply it to our own lives. So to me, the visioning collage is like a billboard that I create for myself so that I am psyching myself up to have the life that I want and recognize it when I see it. When I walked into this house, when the realtor brought me here, I didn't have to think twice. Every room I walked into was already in my collage. It was as if I'd handed the collage to the builder and said, "Here, build this house for me." And so when I walked into the last room, which happened to be the master bathroom with a jacuzzi with stained glass in the back of the bathtub, which was so much like the collage, I had to laugh. I laughed out loud. And I turned to the realtor, who was my own realtor representing me, and I just kind of laughed. I said, "Well, I guess I have to buy this house." And she thought that was the strangest phrase. Why did I have to buy this house? And I told her, I said, "I've got a collage. When I move in, I'm going to have a housewarming, and you're going to come to it, and you're going to see the collage, and you're going to understand why I said what I just said." And when she saw the collage, she said, "Oh, yeah, I see what you mean."
So interesting.
And I told her, I said, if realtors were smart, they would have their customers, their clients, make collages of the kind of a house they want. And believe me, you'd cut to the chase, because she only spent an afternoon with me, showed me 5 houses. The 5th one was it, and I bought it. Okay? I was a real easy customer.
Yeah. Well, something tells me most realtors wouldn't want to open that Pandora's box.
Yeah.
But maybe that's another company. Wouldn't that be interesting if someone took that on and did that?
Exactly. Well, I have trained some people who have used collage to find houses for themselves.
Right.
And they've actually done that. They found exactly what they wanted by using this process. Now, the process also includes the journaling work that I do using the non-dominant hand, and that's a key, because you can picture your heart's desire, but if you've got some psychological blocks to manifesting it, it's not going to happen. So what I do is I have people journaling with the images in the collage, because here's what I've discovered as a therapist, is that every image that goes into that collage illustrating the heart's desire and the focus phrase is really an image of a part of the self that wants to be born, that wants to be expressed. And whether it's a building, an animal, a geographical location, a person, whatever it is, when we give a voice to those images and let them write with the non-dominant hand in the journal, amazing things come out, and qualities that the person had inside that have not been activated start to get activated. And that's what makes this happen. So if I've got a collage that's got all this adventuring and traveling stuff on it, it's because I probably haven't been doing a lot of traveling. And so that part of me wants a voice now. It's been disowned. And to use a Jungian term, it's been kind of in the shadows. And so now it's showing its face and it's saying, "Hey, I'm over here. I want to start traveling." And so I've got to bring that subpersonality, that quality in myself out, that ability to be flexible, to be an adventurer, to try new things, to take some risks. That's got to come out in order for me to actually manifest some travel. So that's the psychological piece of this work that really makes it work.
Well, it's an opportunity for healing that is revealed.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's way more than treasure mapping or making vision boards or The Secret. It's way, way, way more than that. And I've had clients say that to me. They thought that they were coming to me for a slightly more sophisticated version of The Secret. And I go, that's not what this is at all. We are not making pictures of stuff that we want to accumulate. That's not what this is about. This is about letting the hidden inner life, the gifts that we have inside, the talents, the interests, the passions that we've stuffed in the closet, this is about letting them come out and speak. This is really very much like soul collage work, if you're familiar with Zena Frost's work. In fact, I've done a lot of soul collage cards. I have great respect for her work, and there are a lot of practitioners of soul collage work. This is very much like that in the sense of using the photographic images to really show us something about what's going on very deep inside. So it's not only healing, because there are parts of us that cause trouble if they don't get a voice. We stuff them in the closet. Well, where's the closet? It's usually the body. We get low energy, we start getting aches and pains, headaches, whatever, and the unlived dream somatizes and becomes illness. And I can tell you this for sure. I've told my story in many of my over a dozen books that I've published commercially. I was an example of somebody who got sick because I wasn't living my heart's desire and my soul dream. And once I found that, I got well, and I, really created a whole new career and a whole body of work out of that illness. But the dream that was unfulfilled had gone into my body and made me sick. Terminally ill. I had a very serious condition. And I've worked with people with cancer who have gone into remission, and let me tell you, when they do this kind of work, it's amazing to see what happens to them after the cancer. They are reborn. They are literally reborn. And it helps them heal the cancer, but because it gives them a design for the future. It's like, hey, wait a minute, you're not ready to check out yet.
Right. Well, just listening to you, I'm thinking about how, first of all, I mean, it's so common in our culture to invalidate, to have our desires invalidated.
Right.
And, I have seen it, have experienced it. Often it's from parent to child.
Right.
And I'm thinking about a client who I met with, it was probably a year ago. I was working with him, and, he wanted to go out west. He wanted to work in nature. He had a decent job. It was kind of closer to entry level, and he wasn't sure he wanted to, but, his dad, like all the quote unquote practical people in his life, were telling him, no, you have insurance, there are benefits, what are you thinking about? You want to go out to what?
Exactly.
Why would you want to do that? You don't want to do that. You want to, and, when he sat with me, and, I told him, you want that? God gives us that. We're given that. It's okay to listen to that. And we go on talking for 5 more minutes, and then, I'm watching him tear up. And, I'm kind of not trying to interfere. I'm letting him have his experience and let him feel. And when the moment was right, I said, what's going on?
Yeah.
And he said, no one's ever told me that before.
And you know who that was? That was his inner child that you spoke to.
Saying thank you.
And that's why I found that when I worked with clients, because my work based on my book, Recovery of Your Inner Child, and the work that I pioneered with combining voice dialogue with journaling to work with reparenting one's inner child. And because my clients were doing that, by the time they got to the end of the series of 12 sessions where we work with the playful and creative child and the spiritual child, because we've already dealt with the critic and we've learned to nurture the inner child and to protect the inner child. Well, who's holding the heart's desire? It's the inner child.
Yeah.
And very frequently, by the time they get to the end of the 12 sessions, they go, when I was a kid, I wanted to be this or that,
right.
That make-believe stuff, That's what I really wanted to do. And I go, like you said, it's not too late,
Yeah.
And they would start to pick up the threads of those early dreams from childhood or early adolescence. And I would give them permission to follow that. And that was when I started to realize, okay, once they've gotten this reparenting stuff out of the way, and they can stand up to other people who are criticizing and, throwing cold water on their dreams.
Right.
Now they're ready to ask that question, what is my true heart's desire? And that was when I started developing the visioning coaching with these, clients who had done the reparenting. And it's all of a piece, because it's that inner child in us that's playful and creative and open to our divine gifts that is going to really lead us. And I say it in the Inner Child book, I quote scripture, "A little child shall lead us." Well, who is that child? It's the child inside. It's a very innocent voice. It is very physical, and it really wants to enjoy life. And that's the key. What is my heart's desire?
Wow. Yeah. Just writing that down right now. A little child will lead us. Where's that from?
The journaling that I brought in with the visioning, of course, helps them further that process of getting the obstacles out of the way, dealing with the inner critic. When I'm doing a workshop, after they've picked all their images out and laid them out, they haven't glued anything down yet. I have them do my inner child, inner critic dialogue. I have them write it out. And I tell them, okay, you haven't glued anything down yet. It's all tentative, but you've got it all laid out. Now, I want you to bring your inner critic in and just sit to the side a little bit and look at that collage from the point of view of your inner critic. Let's just face that head on right now, because you're going to face it later when you go home and look at your collage every day. The critic's going to come out sooner or later. So I want you to know how to do this right now. So they do that. All right, with your dominant hand, I want you to write out in the second person, what did the critic just say about this? Oh, you can't have this. You can't afford this. This is pie in the sky. This is really stupid. You've got a good job, blah, 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 blah. And then I have them sit down and with their non-dominant hand, from their inner brat, their inner, little bratty, mouthy child, answer back. Just tell that critic off. Because the child was very engaged in selecting these photographs, of finding your heart's desire. And you need to let that child tell that critic exactly how it feels about being talked to like that. And I don't want you sitting here getting depressed and crying, because that's what happens when you believe what the critic is saying. I want you to, let that child say how it really feels. And it's always angry, of course. And so, 4-letter words, it sasses back, and then everybody laughs. They go, "Oh, yeah. This is great. That felt wonderful."
Yeah, well, I'm feeling it right now. I'm thinking about the first time I sat in a workshop of yours, and I did that. And I have the journal somewhere where I kept it, and I can't remember exactly what my inner brat said, but it was invigorating. I mean, I feel happy just thinking about it,
Sure.
I mean, he had middle fingers up.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, and he got his say. And I mean, anyone who hasn't experienced that, I just wish it for them. Because
it's so, and because you've been there, you can feel the whole room shift, because when they're writing from their inner critic, it gets really tense. Nobody's breathing. And I always tell them, while you're doing this, don't forget to breathe. Right. Their breathing shuts down. They turn white. I mean, the color goes out of their face. They start frowning. Their body movement and body language gets real restricted and uptight. And I'm sitting on the sidelines watching this every time.
Right.
And I just, I want to laugh inside, because I know what's coming. And then when they answer back, the energy in the room, as you know, it totally shifts. It comes back to life. There's energy. They start smiling and laughing. Some of them are, making faces because it's the inner brat telling the critic off. It's hilarious. And everybody loves it, because it's so liberating to let that little kid who was told in childhood, no, you can't listen to yourself. You can't have your dream. You've got to listen to the grown-ups. They know better than you do. And to finally, as in that child state, not as an adult, but in the child state, to be able to tell that critic off is just immense. It's huge. Yeah.
Well, and
so I teach that skill right in the workshop, even though it's in the book, and most people have the book when they go home to do the journal prompts that I have there. I want them to do it right in the workshop, because I tell them, look, I don't know when it's going to happen. It could be tomorrow. It could be 3 weeks from now. while you're looking at your collage, I can guarantee that that critic is going to come in, and it's going to be in your head, and you want to get it out of your head onto some paper, and then you want to answer back to it. Do not let it put you in a state of depression, because that's what will happen. When creativity isn't allowed to express and the critic takes over, the result is either depression or addiction. There's really, or sickness. Those are the three choices. So is that what you want? Because, of course, the addiction is caused by stuffing a gag in the inner child's mouth. And we all know that. Emotions get shut down. A gag gets put in the kid's mouth, doesn't get a chance to have its feelings or express them. And what is the gag in the mouth? It's the addiction. Let's go have another drink. Let's go get some more drugs. Let's go shopping. Let's distract ourselves from the feeling.
Desire's not there.
Yeah. I call it toxic self-nurturing. It's a distorted attempt to soothe the child, but of course we all know what the result of that is. It just doesn't work. But that's what happens if this creativity isn't allowed to express. Either that'll happen, or in my case, I got sick. My career was over, and I didn't see the handwriting on the wall, and my body just stopped me, and I ended up getting very ill when I was 35, and I had to go to bed, and that's when I discovered journaling and art therapy and all the stuff that I've been doing ever since.
Well, something that's come up for me throughout this whole conversation, this idea of desire and the heart's desire. And you talk about how the energy changes in the room when you go from the voice of the inner critic to the inner child. I've thought about this lately in my little world in life, how desire affects everything. And you can go to something as simple as, what's it feel like to do something I want to do versus something I don't want to do?
That's right.
And emotionally, it's a much different experience, and energetically, it's a different experience.
Well, and you know what I do with my clients now, no matter what I'm doing, whether it's visioning or doing talent development work with my workbook, that's called the Talent Workbook, or if I'm doing inner child work, what I do now is I have my clients practice the mantra for every little decision they make, if they can remember it, to ask themselves before they make the decision, is this really my heart's desire? And it can be as silly as what you wear, what clothes you put on in the morning, what you have for breakfast, which route you take to work. Okay? We make decisions all day long. And I call it heart aerobics. It's like, we talk about exercising the heart for physical reasons, but we need to exercise the heart for psychological and emotional reasons. And so when people learn to ask themselves, well, what do I really want to wear? Never mind what I wear every day. What path do I really want to take to work? Do I want to take the scenic route because it's more relaxing? Or do I want to take the one I'm always taking just because I'm on automatic? So when they get into the groove of asking that question every time they have to make a decision, and it's not easy to do. I mean, most clients forget most of the time.
Right.
But every now and then they'll remember, oh, yeah, I have to drive from this place to that place, but I've got 2 or 3 routes I could take. Which one do I really want to take? Okay? And so maybe they start out by remembering this 2 or 3 times a day. But I'll tell you, the clients that tell me that they're remembering it more and more are doing amazing things in their lives. They're really paying attention to the big decisions. And once you practice this and you get used to giving yourself permission wherever and whenever possible. Now, it isn't possible to always fulfill our heart's desire, but it's a start. And once you get started, you really get hooked on it, and you want to live like that. And then that transfers over to the big decisions about choice of relationship, choice of job, choice of where you live, all that stuff.
Lucia, are you familiar with Ramana Maharshi?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Who am I?
Yeah.
I mean, that's his big question, and that's what you're talking about.
That's right.
Looking through every decision in life, looking through the lens of what is most me.
Right. And ultimately, this is a deeply spiritual practice, this whole visioning thing. Why? Because we're able to fulfill our deepest gifts, why we're here on the planet. And that becomes the rudder of our boat. I mean, this is going to control where we go. That I always tell people in my workshops and my clients that heart's desire focus phrase is your soul speaking. And all you're doing here is illustrating the language of your soul. And the language of the soul is the arts anyway. So, of course, you're going to make a collage. And we're not making a collage to put a frame around and put on a wall or sell. We're not looking at it as art with a capital A for a museum. We're looking at this as art for healing and for manifesting your soul's, call it fate, destiny, whatever, path. I don't know what you want to call it, but everybody has their own name for it. But that's what we're doing. We're illustrating the soul's voice, the soul's language. And we're doing it in the language of the soul. And it's profound work. And, of course, it's, as I said, it's deeply spiritual. The problem is it could go in the direction of materialism. When people are just making a vision board with a bunch of stuff on it, well, what does that add up to? Is it really the soul speaking, or is it them creating a picture of what they think they should want? That's what happens when they come in advance. They come in the door to a workshop and they tell me, oh, this isn't what I thought I was going to do. This collage looks nothing like what I thought I was going to do today. And I go, well, what did you think you were going to? Oh, well, I thought I was going to do a whole thing about my job. And this is all pictures of retreat centers. What's this all about? And I go, well, do some journaling with it and find out. Because you asked for your heart's desire, and I go, yeah, when I went through the magazines, this is all I wanted. Pictures of, here's a picture of a labyrinth and somebody walking in the woods and, a little chapel and all these words about spiritual stuff and relaxing and quiet and meditation. This isn't what I thought I was going to do at all. And then I know they're on the right track. Because, see, the job thing, they come in thinking, oh, I need to do a collage of a job advancement. I need to make more money. I need to achieve. And I'm going to do a collage of that, and then I'm going to be right on my way, right? No. Their soul is telling them, no, that's not what you need to do right now. What you need to do is go inside and find this other part of you. And it's really interesting when people, give me feedback later who have come in with a totally different topic in mind, and I'll say, stay in touch with me. Let me know how this goes. They will tell me things like, wow, that's exactly what I needed. That whole meditation collage helped me calm down. I got really centered. I did some spiritual retreats, and I found out that this is not the job I wanted to be in. And I never would have found that out. I was, all busy achieving and accomplishing over there, thinking I was going to do great things, but my heart wasn't in it. Yeah.
Well, we create these narratives for ourselves to validate what we're doing.
Right.
To explain it to ourselves and make sense of it.
Yeah.
And essentially to desensitize ourselves from the distress that we're experiencing because we're not being who we are.
Well, and it all goes back to, the different subpersonalities, because, I'm trained in voice dialogue work, and it is the psychological underpinning of everything I do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I want people to dialogue with the aspects of themselves that are pictured in the collage. Those selves are the parts that have not been getting enough attention. And it's similar to inner family systems work in that you're looking at parts of the self that have been judged and put in the closet, and those are the ones that are going to make trouble. They are going to scream and yell until you let them out, and they'll make you sick. They'll do all kinds of things. They'll get you acting out and things that, it's like, why did I say that? Why did I do that?
Mm-hmm.
They just will not shut up. And so it's important that we have a tool for finding those parts and letting them express. And it's interesting, I do a collage every year, and every year the collage is completely different. Completely different focus. The focus phrase is different. The whole atmosphere of the collage is different. It's just always different. It's changing. It's showing me that, there's other things ahead. So don't decide with your left brain what the year ahead looks like. Let your soul tell you.
Okay, Lucia, so you do the collage. Let's say it's January 5. Now what?
Well, then I tell people to put the collage up and look at it at least 3 times a day. The optimal is in the morning when you get up, sometime during the day. Sometimes people put it as a screensaver, or they'll carry it with them, or, so throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, before you go to bed. And then do some journaling with it. And, of course, they use the journal prompts from my book. And a lot of the journaling involves right-hand, left-hand dialogues with images in the collage. And the non-dominant hand writes for the image. So the person interviews the image. And so I would do a dialogue with a particular scene. Maybe there's a woman sitting on a beach. So I would dialogue with her, and I would ask her questions. Who are you? Well, I'm a beach bum. I just love the beach. I don't have to accomplish anything. I just love the sun. I love the water. I like the smell of the ocean, whatever. And it starts to talk about the experience it's having in the collage. And there might be words around it, because in my method we use words as well. So there might be words like slow down, chill out, get away.
Relax.
Yeah, right. And so if I'm talking to that person in that collage, that's part of me. And it's probably in the collage because I haven't been doing that. If I were already manifesting all this stuff, it wouldn't be in the collage. What comes out in these collages is what I'm not doing, what I'm not saying, what I'm not listening to that's inside of me. That's what this is all about. It's making the invisible visible. And, of course, it's a very Jungian approach. My training in art therapy was Jungian, and so I always look at balance. The parts, it's like an orchestra. The instruments that are getting too much volume and the ones that are getting nothing. And so I want to balance them out. Or the other model is the theater, the parts of me that are not getting into the story of my life, into that play that I'm creating that's my life. That's where my strength is. It's in the areas. It's interesting. On the Myers-Briggs scale, I've always been an extrovert. But my work, my life's work has been about inner work, which is very introverted. And it was that introverted process of journal keeping and then collaging and visioning that healed me from a serious illness. Extroversion did not heal me. Introversion did. And so I had to balance out by finding my weakest side, my shadow side, the part that is not natural for me. And by going there and exploring that was how I balanced out. Now, I'm an extrovert, so fortunately, I can go out and do workshops. I love it. I don't get drained out at all. I get lots of energy from working with groups. I can be exhausted and then go do a workshop, and I come out of the workshop flying. I'm just happy because I'm an extrovert. I get energy from that. But the real gift for me was finding my introvert.
Wow, it's interesting because usually when you're looking at someone and kind of deciding whether you think they're an introvert or extrovert, for me it's pretty easy usually.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that person is definitely an extrovert. And you, I mean, when you said you were an extrovert, you don't strike me as the typical extrovert. Now, you seem like you're in your element in a workshop, but, I don't know, just the way I observe you, the introspection is obvious to me.
Well, you met me later in life when I'd been doing this work for a long time, so I'm not as extreme an extrovert as I once was. I've balanced out. So you're seeing a process of maturation that happened over many years of this, because when I was a little kid, I was a total extrovert. My mother would take me on the bus, and I would be walking up and down the aisles introducing myself to everybody at age 4. That's a natural extrovert. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't sit still. I'd have to go talk to everybody.
Well, my experience has been the complete opposite. I've always been the introvert on the Myers-Briggs, and it's always been more of a challenge for me to be extroverted. Now, if I'm playing a role, like in a job, like it's my job, that I don't have a problem with that at all. But over the years, what has really changed that is my happiness.
Right.
The degree of happiness, the level of comfort with myself. Now it's nothing for me to say something to a stranger, to make an observation or whatever.
Right. Exactly. And as I say, it's a maturation process, absolutely, because you have stretched yourself, and it's taken you in the direction of feeling comfortable with your extroverted side. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well.
So that's very connected to this visioning work, because what we're looking for is what has not had a voice. What part of our personality has been left out? And why are they left out? Because we judge them. So this is all about self-acceptance. We judge those parts. We judge the beach bum who just likes to sit by the water and listen to the waves and doesn't have to accomplish anything. That was a disowned self for me. That's why I got sick. Because I was an extroverted achiever, and I was on the go all the time. I was a single parent with 2 kids, and I burned out. And so what happened? My soul said, you're going to have to go to bed now, and you're going to be so sick that you can't do any of that anymore. Your mother's going to have to take care of the kids, and you're going to just have to shut up and be quiet and stay in bed for a while. And that's what happened. That's how I discovered journaling. And then when I got into art therapy, I started seeing it in my clients that they needed to give a voice to the parts of themselves that had been strangled and gagged and put in the closet. Because of judgment. We grow up with our primary selves. That's fine. We get through life. They get us through. But sooner or later, the other side wants acknowledgement, and that's our job. That's soul work. That's what we have to do here.
Well, Lucia, I really appreciate you doing this. It's been a pleasure. Again, it's so much fun to talk to you. Well, it's always a pleasure, Tom, really. I'm just always love chatting with you and sharing this stuff, and I know that you're doing some wonderful work. That I support what you're doing, and I'm really glad that you're
getting this out to an audience. All the work that you do and that other people do that you have great respect for. This is really important work to get this message out to people. They really need it more than ever.
Well, and I was that adolescent who said, I want to be on the radio.
Yeah.
And this is me going back to that part of my heart's desire. And I think that's why it's working.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's what I'm...
that's an exercise in my first book. What do you want to be when you grow up?
Mm-hmm.
And people love that exercise. It's later on in the book. And I ask people, ask the question, what did I want to be when I grew up?
Mm-hmm.
Go back to childhood memories and write that stuff down and draw pictures of it and really pay attention to it. What were those things that you said as a child? I've told the story in the book. My father saw a movie in Italy when he was about 5 years old. And he didn't know what movies were. He was in a little village. And this is probably 1916 or something like that. And he came home and told his mother about what he'd seen. These pictures moving on a sheet hanging on the stable wall down the street. And there was some machine in the back with this spool on it. He didn't even know how to describe it. And when he was all through describing it to his mother, he said, you know what? Someday I'm going to make those things. And he ended up in L.A. because my grandfather was here raising money to send for them. And he ended up being a film editor in movies. He did Judy Garland's films, Gene Kelly, some Fred Astaire, and he was the first film editor in television, Lone Ranger.
Wow.
Okay? So he knew as a 5-year-old that what he wanted to do, and he did it.
Mm-hmm.
He had that passion inside, and he kept it alive. And his mother was an amazing woman who said, her answer to him was, if that's what you really want to do, that's what you'll do. How's that?
Well, and for me, and to me, I think this is an important thing to note about this stuff, because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. And, it was because I loved baseball. There's nothing I loved more than baseball.
Right.
And of course, at some point, I found a reason to table that and not pursue it anymore and basically give up on it. And it's one of the few regrets that I have, because maybe I would have never played shortstop for the Chicago Cubs or anything like that. But I could have been a coach, even if it was at a college, or my life path would have gone in that direction, and I would have found wherever I fit.
Right.
So, I get to be in my, I'm in my 40s. So what do I do with that now? I'm playing baseball probably isn't the expression of that's going to work now. But you know what I did? I honored it. I got the Major League Baseball package. So now every year when the baseball season starts, I can watch baseball every single day. If I want,
Fantastic.
I do it. And the other thing I did is I wouldn't call it an altar, but I set up a place where, like, the artifacts from my baseball career and the visual representations of that, I put it somewhere where I could honor it.
That's absolutely perfect. Yeah. And that's basically what we're doing in the collages, is we're honoring parts of ourselves. And I think that's fabulous. I wanted to be a dancer when I was a child, but I had a heart murmur for a period of my early childhood. And my mother, being overprotective, said, absolutely no dance lessons for you. So I ended up in art and music and drama and all that other stuff. But at age 40, I took my first dance class, and I studied dance for years, not to be a dancer professionally, but expressive dance, and I worked it into my work as an art therapist, and ended up helping pioneer the field of expressive arts therapy, where movement is used for healing purposes.
Well, you just don't know where it's going to go.
Just like you with the baseball.
Right.
I did it just for myself because it was fun. It was modern expressive dance, and I studied dance therapy as well, and I loved it. And then I was able to sort of, weave it into my work as an art therapist in a new form. So I wanted to be a ballerina because that's all that I saw on film or any place,
Right.
But I did bring the love of dance into my life later at age 40. So it's never too late.
It just took a different shape than what you could envision at that.
Exactly. Listen, art therapy didn't exist when I was a kid. That wouldn't have been an option.
Right.
They didn't form the organization until 1969. So it wasn't around. So I couldn't have known that. But the love of dance, the movement, and the free expression through the body, that's where it was at for me. And that's what we do in expressive therapies.
Yeah.
So, you never know how it's going to show up later in life. But I could tell you hundreds of stories of people that have asked themselves that question, what did they want to be when they were kids? And they picked up the missing threads and they wove it back into their life somehow. They really were able to, bring it out in some form. So, that's part of this visioning thing. I see that all the time in workshops where people say, oh, that was something I always wanted to do when I was a kid. And there it is on the collage. I go, well, figure out a way to do it.
Well, I guess one thing that comes to mind that kind of ties into everything we've been talking about here and sort of a little, I can find myself on a soapbox at times about emotions and feel, how we just kind of don't pay much attention to them in our culture.
That's right.
But everything we're talking about involves acknowledgement of what you're feeling, whether it's physically or emotionally. Because I loved baseball. One of the reasons I loved it is because I loved the way I felt in my body when I was on a baseball field and I had a ball in my hand. And, and this, what is my heart's desire? We feel that.
Yeah.
And just, I think, so if there's one thing that I've tried to get better at, and I would encourage anyone listening to try to become better at, is to be tuned in to what you're experiencing emotionally, physically. Pay attention, because those are all messages and sources of direction for us.
Exactly. And that's my definition of the inner child. It's our physical self, our sensations in our body. It's our emotions, our feelings, and it's the root of our creative self, and also our spiritual self. That's where we find the creativity and the spirituality in that inner child, in the body and in the emotions. And so that's why in my book, Recovery of Inner Child, the last 3 chapters are devoted to the playful child, the creative child, and the spiritual child. Because once you've learned to pay attention to your emotions and your body and to take care of them and to get that critic away from that child long enough to let the child speak and to express itself, then you automatically just fall right into your playfulness, joy, creativity, and your spiritual connection with the higher power.
And you feel better. You feel better.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Lucia, Happy New Year.
Well, same to you. It's been a pleasure, and I love sharing this with everyone, and I wish everybody happy visioning.
All right. We'll talk more. Thanks, Lucia.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to The Path to Authenticity. If you'd like to learn more about our guest, you can find links in the show notes or visit our website at thepathtooauthenticity.com. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor, if you have a suggestion for a topic, or you know someone who would make a great guest, email the show at thepathtooauthenticity@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you know someone else who would enjoy the show, or even just a particular episode, please share it with them. Every little bit helps. If you're not already a subscriber, please consider becoming one wherever it is you choose to listen. You can find the show on Patreon, where by becoming a patron, you can hear episodes before they're released publicly. You can gain access to supplemental content. There are other benefits in the various tiers. Visit patreon.com/thepathtooauthenticity. Join our Facebook community or follow the show on Instagram, both at The Path to Authenticity. We also have a YouTube channel. You can connect with us on Twitter or Pinterest. To hear the songs from this and every episode, you can find the Path to Authenticity playlist on Spotify. Obviously, there are a lot of ways you could be spending your time, so I appreciate you spending some of it here with me. I'm Tom Gentry. Thanks for listening. Be nice.
Great, honeybee.
The Path to Authenticity is powered by Equivox. For digital marketing and web design services, visit equivox.com.